has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast.
All right, so we're still talking NFL Pain Day Skinny, and Dan Campbell leads it off here in the third hour. Don't forget to get the SportsGrid app on iOS or Android. The app's fantastic. You can watch the network on there, listen to the network on here. It's free. You can follow your favorite hosts. Got everything in-game odds, you name it, stories, videos, highlights. It's all there, the SportsGrid app, and you can watch us on X. Follow SportsGrid-Live on X, and you can watch the network streaming right on X.
You certainly can. Yes, just a couple of other NFL things before we get moving here today for us. Let's go to the Lions now with Dan Campbell. Huge game with the Packers this week in Lambeau. Now, we've been talking, as many have the past few weeks, about the Lions maybe adding some pass rusher help before next week's trade deadline, especially with Aiden Hutchinson done for the season. Now, here's Campbell yesterday. He seems very giddy, Scotty, about something. He's asked if there's any trades in the works for a pass rusher, and he certainly at least wants to give off the vibe that that potentially is the case.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, could be.
No, seriously, so has he come to you with something?
Yeah, it could be.
Jumping around. I mean, he's excited.
Yeah, whatever.
Like, what?
I really don't know what's happening there, but I do know what's happening in reality, and that's they've won 5 in a row. They're kicking everyone's ass. They were in a 14-all game, and then they rattled off 52 points in the game on the Titans. They're the best team in the North. It's not Green Bay. It's nobody. It's not the Vikings. It's not the Bears. It's them. In the NFC, it's them. It really is. It's not the Niners. It's them. If they can stay healthy. Now, they've already lost that guy. They've got to stay healthy. If they can, keep it under control health-wise, injury-wise, they're going to be a problem. You play them in the postseason, you're going to lose. They're good. Their quarterback's fantastic. Goff has turned into such a stud in the NFL. It's not even funny. He fits that team like a mold. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's doing with the Lions. So no wonder Campbell's jumping up and down and giddy. They win every week.
Lions have 25 touchdowns in their last 5 games. And in that span, they've only had 20 incomplete passes. That's pretty good. 5 more touchdowns than incomplete passes over a 5-game span for the Detroit Lions. They are in Lambeau, 4:25 East on Sunday. They are 3.5-point favorites over the Packers. Of course, we have no idea what's going to happen with Love for that game. 48.5 is the total. I know we mentioned it yesterday. Lions are just flat out better right now.
Look, I think they're better. I think the line is fishy because it's the NFL, and every game comes down to the last, 30 seconds or a Hail Mary or a field goal or crazy, witching hour, all this other stuff. Nothing ever is easy or normal. So we know that the Lions are the best team. We know they're better than the Packers, but we know the game's in Lambeau and there's a hook involved in the spread. So, I could see him winning and not covering. You know what I mean? And listen, Love's got a groin. So to me, he's not playing. If you got a groin and suddenly his groin's going to be better by Sunday and he's got a pulled groin. So to me, it's Willis. And there's no way I see Willis beating the Lions. But with the NFL, that Commanders game, no one saw that coming. No one sees anything coming in the NFL. Every single game is crazy. Every game. It's never when the game starts, you just think it's a game. By the time it's over, there's people hanging from the rafters. There's bodies being thrown in the river. I mean, it's just, I've never seen anything like these games, how they turn into, oh my God, did you see that? This is inexplicable. It's never happened in the history of the league. It's every single game. It turns into it's like a fiasco. There's never just a game where you win and you handle your business. Like even last night, the Steelers were winning that game, had it in the bag, and then what? The Giants had the ball twice in the last 5 minutes to tie the game, and the Giants are awful. Meanwhile, they played like world beaters last night, You cannot explain anything in this league at all, ever.
Can't do it. Through 8 weeks, the NFC North, the only division that still has everybody over 500. Lions and Packers with 6 wins, Vikings with 5, Bears now 4-3 after the loss to Washington on that Hail Mary play on Sunday. Dennis Allen is optimistic that Derek Carr can return for the Saints this week against Carolina. God, I hope so, because their offense is pathetic without him. They have just barely been able to move the ball with Spencer Rattler in there the past couple of weeks. Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers. The 49ers are on a bye this week. Next week, they plan on opening the IR window for McCaffrey to come back for practice. So he is probably close. And Brock Bowers leads all tight ends with 52 catches after 8 weeks. Bowers has been pretty good. Lone bright spot on the Raiders so far this year.
They're
Bowers.
awful, and he's not. Okay, so they are a loss waiting to happen every Sunday. Just inevitably, you're going to see them lose. They always find a way to lose, and yet they'll cover, right? So they don't win, but they cover. I mean, it's like they covered last week, and they lost, but they're always covering. So in the Bettors Bible, they're the greatest team ever.
They do cover a lot, that's for sure. Those at the Ram game the week before that too, they covered on the road against the Rams.
They covered that one too.
So they are always hanging around it. We mentioned before that they are getting that 7.5 piece in Cincinnati against the Bengals this week. So we'll see how that goes.
There's that hook right there. That'll do it.
That usually is something that comes into play in situations like that. All right, there you go with your NFL. Of course, we'll do some more tomorrow as we get a little bit closer to week number 9. All right, got lots of college football today. Why don't we get this out of the way, and then we'll come back and get into some of the bigger stuff. We do have our typical Tuesday night action, and this is here for you tonight just in case you don't want to watch that World Series game. I know that if things get out of control in the Bronx, you could always flip over to New Mexico State and FIU down there at Pitbull's house for them. So FIU is 7-point favorites tonight. Couple of 2-win football teams. You've got the Ragin' Cajuns at Texas State tonight, with Texas State laying the wood at home, and then La Tech visiting Sam Houston. Sam Houston laying 10.5 at home against Tech.
All right, so listen, Louisiana is getting 3.5, and they're 6-1. They're allegedly a good team against this 4-3 Texas State team who's laying that big piece. That's a big piece to me to a 6-1 team. I got to take those points, right? I really do. And I am not laying 10 with Houston State to save my ass. They never cover. They just never cover. And they're playing this crappy Louisiana Tech team that's 3-4. And watch, they can't cover a 10 spot. When is the last time they covered in a game? Every time they play, every Tuesday night, this happens, right? Sam Houston's on our TV every Tuesday night. Is there anything worse than watching Sam Houston football games on the television? No, there isn't. And they're laying double digits. I mean, they haven't covered in weeks. And then FIU, I heard it's a must-win for FIU against New Mexico State. When have they ever won a must-win game? They're must-win. They're 2-6. Their season's already over.
What the must-win? What is must-win for them? What do they have to must-win?
Team out there in Las Cruces, are you willing to take the Aggies on the streets at Pitbull Stadium?
Oh man, yeah, I'd probably take New Mexico State with the points at Florida International.
I would rather watch these games, these crappy 3 college football games, than watch the Yankees not get any hits again tonight in the Bronx. And listen to that church of a stadium. You could hear a pin drop in there last night.
You talk about how these series came to a head and what has been happening in this postseason for the Yanks. Offensively, it hasn't been Aaron Judge.
Baseball is such a big win here. All you ask for, East Coast Monster City, West Coast Monster City, the biggest of biggest Titan superstars on both sides here, two mammoth fan bases. The entire country can buy into this one.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. So here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball, but the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players hit home run. I call it covering the board. You know, if I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got, 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Look, Aaron Rodgers, it does seem like he really enjoys, people like us, Vinny, talking about him.
I don't know what's going on here with Aaron Rodgers. I think there's some frustration settling in, and the Jets were not supposed to be this bad of a defense, right? They've had a lot of injuries. Maybe that's the thing here. Robert Saleh's influence is there. I know they have their defensive coordinator running things, but now he's distracted.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, Carver High, let's get into the best and worst in college football against the spread.
Yes, always the weekly look at the best and the worst. On the best side of things, now we still have one unbeaten ATS team. They're unbeaten straight up, too. That's Army. 6-0-1 for them this year. BYU and Indiana, 7-1 against the number. They're both undefeated straight up. Pitt, Marshall, Western Kentucky, Minnesota, Vandy, Colorado, Arkansas, Eastern Michigan, and Tulane, all on the good side of the ATS in college.
I mean, it really is crazy when you think about it. I have no problem at all betting on these teams, Army, BYU, Indiana, Pitt. I haven't gotten into Marshall, but, Minnesota continues to blow my mind. Vandy, you cannot go to Vandy and cover. That's just all there is to it. They cover every week. Colorado's been unbelievable. You got to give them credit. Arkansas, you can't make this up. I stay off of Eastern Michigan and Tulane. I don't care about those teams and never will.
Well, get ready. Eastern Michigan's going to be joining the party and those MAC teams next week for our weeknight games. So that is right around the corner there for the MACtion next week. Everybody loves
them because they cover.
Everybody loves MACtion. The worst teams against the spread in college. We still have one team that is yet to find a cover against the spread, and that is Air Force, 0-7. Arizona, North Carolina, NC State, Liberty. Also on the one side of things, Purdue, New Mexico State, Georgia, Ferrell-State.
New Mexico State.
There's New Mexico State. Oh, man.
Oh, no. Go to FIU. Run to FIU.
Might be FIU tonight after all, there with New Mexico State on the board.
Yeah, Kennesaw State's 2-5, but they beat Liberty outright and covered. So that was their second cover right there. So, yeah, don't trust them, but they knock off an undefeated team. Okay, whatever. And here's another one for the MACtion. Don't bet on Central Michigan. Look at their numbers.
Not good. Not good, as we will finally put the MAC in the forefront next Tuesday and Wednesday night, as MACtion will begin for us here down the stretch in college football. Odds to win the college football playoff. Still Georgia as the favorite here at plus 325. Ohio State plus 450. Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Clemson, Tennessee, Alabama, Miami, Texas A&M. Everyone else 40-1 or longer right now on the list for the odds to make it.
I mean, is that not amazing to you at some level that Miami's that far down the totem pole and they're 8-0?
Especially since if you correlate that with this next thing, which is what you sent me in terms of the percentage chance to make the college football playoff. You sent me this today. So Miami's way down on that board to win it, but they at 89.6% have the highest chance to make the college football playoff. Oregon is 87.3%. Penn State and Georgia also very high on that list there. Notre Dame, 59%. Indiana, 68.2% chance to make the college football playoff right now on the big board.
You know, that is amazing to me. Now, if they get into the college football playoff, that will truly blow my mind. They can't make the NCAA basketball tournament. It's a basketball, heaven is Indiana University in Bloomington in an assembly hall. That's just all there. That's where heaven is for college basketball, in case you didn't know. And yet they can't make the NCAA basketball tournament with 68 teams. But you're telling me the Indiana football program, who's had one good year in their history, 1967, that they're going to make the first college football 12 playoff teams? You got to be kidding me. You can't even make this up.
It would be pretty unbelievable if that guy makes the playoff in his first year.
I mean,
in Bloomington, getting them into the college football playoff, that'd be insane.
If he does that, if he gets in to the playoff, that he will leave Indiana for the first big job that comes calling.
Yes, I do. I actually think you making the college football playoff, listen, of course you want to be there and you want to make it, but it might not be the best thing long term for Indiana football, because one of these giants is going to knock on his door and offer him more money to go coach there. And we've already seen the guy. He's a stepping stone guy. He moves. He's been moving up the ladder. And I think that
they got to get it
now
happens, while it's hot. It's one.
Get
one
it now
and
while
done.
it's hot.
One and done.
Now, there's one other thing I've seen a lot of people talking about, and that's close to you as well, is Pitt is now at 20% to make the college football playoff. They're undefeated, of course, Pitt. I've seen some people start to say that the Penn State Pitt thing, Penn State ducks Pitt, as we know. They don't play them ever in the regular season anymore.
Right. And
the Pitt fans want Penn State in the playoffs so that way they could get them and say, you don't want to play us? Well, now you got to play us. A Pitt-Penn State game in the playoffs. How juicy would that be?
Well, look, now listen, I would love to see Pitt do well. Growing up in Pittsburgh, I went to 1 million Pitt games in my life. I saw everything. I saw Tony Dorsett, Hugh Green, Dan Marino, saw them all. But I'll say this. I think they got their hands full at Gerald Ford in Dallas on Saturday night. And I cannot believe, we said this yesterday, that this game is not on television. It's on that crappy ACC network. Now, no offense to the ACC network, but does anyone alive have it? Does anyone alive have that channel? Like, I've never seen it before in my life. So all I know is one of the best games in college football this weekend, you can't watch it unless you have this thing, which no one does. And all I know is I think they stumble in Dallas. I think that SMU team can beat them at that place. I mean, it's going to be lit and hostile, okay? So it is what it is. We'll see if they can get it done. They stay undefeated and win that game, then they have nothing left to worry about. I think that's their last big game, right? I mean, this season, it's almost over, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah, no, we're getting down to the end here. If Pitt were able to get this off this week really fast, they play Virginia, Clemson, Louisville, and Boston College. They play Clemson, but it's at the place the Steelers play. They would have Clemson coming to their place in a couple weeks. Still very tough.
I think Clemson will beat them.
talk about how these series came to a head and what has been happening in this postseason for the Yanks. Offensively, it hasn't been Aaron Judge.
Baseball is such a big win here. All you ask for, East Coast Monster City, West Coast Monster City, the biggest of biggest Titan superstars on both sides here, two mammoth fan bases. The entire country can buy into this one.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. So here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball, but the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players hit home run. I call it covering the board. You know, if I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got, 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Look, Aaron Rodgers, it does seem like he really enjoys, people like us, Vinny, talking about him.
I don't know what's going on here with Aaron Rodgers. I think there's some frustration settling in, and the Jets were not supposed to be this bad of a defense, right? They've had a lot of injuries. Maybe that's the thing here. Robert Saleh's influence is there. I know they have their defensive coordinator running things, but now he's distracted.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Well, we kind of talked about this yesterday. The Heisman odds have certainly changed with your boy up at Oregon getting involved. Dylan Gabriel now moving into the scene, very quickly out of nowhere. I guess with the Ohio State and Illinois games, that got him, to the head of the class?
He is now at the head of the class. As you'll see, Dylan Gabriel from Oregon now up there in the top spot, but it's not that big of a lead. He's plus 230, Travis Hunter's plus 270, and Cam Ward is plus 300. So there's not much separating those three. Gentie's now plus 440, and you could forget about everybody else on that list. None of them are winning the Heisman. It will be one of those 4 names, Scotty, at the top. I don't think anyone else makes up ground in this last month that's going to pass one of those 4 guys.
Explain to me how, frankly, Cam Ward and Jenny have fallen so rapidly. Honestly, now it's a rivalry game against Florida State. I know Florida State has been awful. They're 1-7, and I know he didn't have a good game. I'll give you that. I guess I can live with Ward has dropped. But how do you explain to me how Jenny dropped? What did Jenny do to drop? This guy, he runs for 200 yards every time he touches the ball.
Yeah, but his numbers the last 2 weeks, they haven't been as video game-ish. Like we said, for this guy to win, his numbers have to be far and beyond everybody else's. And if you look at the last 2 weeks, yes, Boise's won, but he only had 128 and a touchdown against UNLV. I know that sounds silly saying only 128 and a touchdown.
That's a good team as well. It's like saying that
right.
Cam Ward played a high school team. Florida State, Miami's a rivalry game, no matter what. It always is. And then the Boise game against UNLV's been really good. Now, listen, here's the thing. You cannot tell me that Travis Hunter, he had enormous numbers in their 6th win. They in Boulder on Saturday. Enormous game. And this guy, Gabriel, I get it. He had a good game against Illinois, and he had a really good game against Ohio State. I'll give you that. But he had a good game against Illinois. Illinois, 38-9, whatever it was. But there's no way you can tell me he had a better game than Hunter had in Boulder. The guy, he literally had enormous numbers.
He was the first player ever. I saw this about Hunter this morning. He was the first player ever awarded both the Big 12 offensive and defensive player of the week the same week. He got the offensive player of the week
And this guy's over
and
him.
the defensive player of the week this week after that win that Colorado had. So he has been outstanding when he's been able to stay on the field for the Buffaloes. And it's very close. And there's still a few weeks for all this to be decided. That is for sure. Now, this week, in terms of big games on the board, I think the biggest absolutely is going to be in Happy Valley with this matchup between Ohio State and Penn State. Now, I heard you bring this up to DeCourcy earlier. Here it is. This is Will Howard, of course, the quarterback for Ohio State, grew up in Pennsylvania, grew up a Penn State fan, and they basically said, thanks, but no thanks.
I'm stoked. I cannot wait. It's going to be a homecoming for me. I grew up a Penn State fan. I wanted to go there my whole life. They didn't think I was good enough. But I guess we'll see next week if I was.
I love that. I absolutely love that kid just threw the gauntlet, that he's going to show up there and show out. He's like, I'm not good enough to play there. He wanted to be Nittany Lion his entire life, and they shafted him, and now he's going there to play him. I got to tell you, I like his chances. Penn State's got quarterback issues. Ohio State doesn't, and Ohio State cannot afford for 1 second to lose this game because they looked like crap against Nebraska. And they lost at Outson to Oregon.
Yeah, I agree with what Mike said earlier. I don't think Ohio State wants to mess around with a second loss on their resume this year. I think they need to win this game. They are 3.5-point favorites in Happy Valley. The total's 45.5. Drew Aller is a game-time decision officially for Penn State, but who knows what's going to happen with him. But we know what happens every time these two get together. Ohio State wins. Doesn't matter where the game is. It never does. They always beat Penn State. And with that kid maybe having a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, I think they do as well this week and cover the number. Cover it.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I can really care. I hate both of them. I'm just saying, like, if they're going to win and cover, I hope the kid does it. It's being a hook. So they need to win by, 4 or 5, putty, whatever. Let's get it. And they always beat them.
When you talk about how these series came to a head and what has been happening in this postseason for the Yanks, offensively, it hasn't been Aaron Judge.
Baseball is such a big win here. All you ask for, East Coast Monster City, West Coast Monster City, the biggest of biggest Titan superstars on both sides here, two mammoth fan bases. The entire country can buy into this one.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball, but the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players at home. I call it covering the board. If I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got, 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Look, Aaron Rodgers, it does seem like he really enjoys, people like us, Vinny, talking about him.
I don't know what's going on here with Aaron Rodgers. I think there's some frustration settling in, and the Jets were not supposed to be this bad of a defense, right? They've had a lot of injuries. Maybe that's the thing here. Robert Saleh's influence is there. I know they have their defensive coordinator running things, but now he's distracted.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
so there's a lot of other games like this Duke-Miami game. I think this one also in Miami Gardens at Hard Rock. And I'll tell you what, Duke's coming off a real trying game in Durham in overtime that they lost to SMU. And, that was a very physical game, probably took a lot out of them. And then they got to go on the road and play this Miami team. Now, I know Duke has given Miami problems in the past at some level, but nothing that I'm really losing sleep over. Do you really think Miami's going to lose to Duke this week?
I don't think they're going to lose to Duke, no. Do I think that 3 tutties and a hook might be a little much in terms of the spread? Maybe. Especially since Duke's been pretty tough this year. You have Manny Diaz going back there. Of course, Diaz is coach of Duke now, and he's done a pretty good job there this year. He's probably going to be up for it a bit. I like Duke with the number, but Miami's staying undefeated in this game. And I see 20.5 there. I just looked at 21.5 somewhere else. So that 21.5 and 20.5, those are a difference, as we know. That's a big difference, 20 and 21.
21 and a hook is pounce on it. I'd pounce on 21 and a hook because I don't think, Miami has struggled in almost every game they play about, covering the number. You know what I mean? Like, look, Tech game, they had no business winning. Cal game, they were down 35-10. They win 39-38. If you bet the Florida State game at kickoff at 22 and a hook, you did not cover, but I had them at minus 21 all week. So that did cover. I think, Duke is better than Florida State, hands down. I think you're right. Manny Diaz has done a good job with his team. They covered 11 and a hook for me against SMU, so I'd be inclined to take that if I got the 21 and a hook. I'm not interested at 20 and a hook, although I'll be honest with you, I don't even think Miami can cover 20 and a hook.
Yeah, it's a very, very big number. Oregon, number 1 in the country, of course, undefeated as well, going on the road. They haven't had many challenging tests on the road, and they will be in Ann Arbor here at the Big House against Michigan this week. 15.5 for the Ducks with a 45.5 total.
I mean, I think Michigan is decent at best, and I do think Oregon's 16 points better than Michigan. I really do. Now, the game's in Ann Arbor, so that's where it comes into, some level of stickiness. When they play in that place, they certainly are different than when they go on the road. They barely beat Michigan State, right? And, Oregon is 16 points better than Michigan. They really are. I mean, their offense is going to be a problem for Michigan to stop. This is not at all, not even remotely, the team that won the national championship last year. Believe me, all you have to do is look. Every week's a struggle for Michigan. I think they'll lose to Oregon. I think Oregon will cover.
I think Oregon will cover, too. I think it's Smash City. I think that Oregon has played their bad football. That was earlier in the year when they weren't covering against bad teams. Now it's smash time. They're just going to smash everybody, close this thing out the rest of the season. Into Jacksonville next we'll go. I guess, isn't this another one of these rivalry games where you're not allowed to call it what it was always called, the world's largest cocktail party? You say you're not supposed to call it that anymore between Florida and Georgia? That's what we call it. In Jacksonville, as they usually do meet, Georgia number 2 in the country, 16.5 against the Gators here with a 52.5 total.
Well, you saw what Georgia did to Texas in Austin at Memorial. They beat them, 30-15 or something like that? They kicked their ass in Austin. So I don't care where this game is. Florida, to me, has been a real average football team this year. Billy Napier, they've had a couple of signs of life when they went to Knoxville. Fair enough? But I think they go to Jacksonville and get their ass beat by this Georgia team. This Georgia team they're not losing another game.
I'm with you. They are on their way to that SEC title game, I feel. And finally, we've talked about this game, but I haven't actually given you the number. That's that Pitt-SMU game in Dallas on Saturday night. And Holstein, by the way, there's some injury concern with him as well for Pitt, which would make even more of a problem. He's been excellent for them. SMU 7.5 point favorites here on a Tuesday with a 58.5 total now.
I mean, that's a big piece right there. 7.5 against an undefeated team. Look, obviously, the books think that SMU is going to win this game at Ford in Dallas. It's that simple. And that Pitt's undefeated season ends Saturday night down there. So it smells like some home cooking that they're going to get it done by, more than 7.5 to me. I think they're going to handle Pitt Saturday night.
It does kind of sound that way, doesn't it? Unfortunately, it does sound that way. Kurt Signetti is optimistic that Curtis Rourke will be back for Indiana this week in East Lansing against Sparty. Indiana is 7.5-point favorites right now on the road in that game. Now, I thought the kid played good enough last week that I would still be confident in him. I don't know about 7.5 with him. I will definitely be 7.5 if it's Rourke, though, Scotty. I got no problem with him if he's the quarterback.
Yeah, look, I just want him to play and get back to where they were because, when he was there, they were 40-plus a week, scoring 47, 56 points. They were not that team with Jackson. I thought that Taven Jackson did a good job, and he won the game, and they handled their business. And he did just fine. But, they played Washington. Let's calm down here, okay? They put up 31. They won. They covered. They're 8-0, so be it. But I want this Rourke guy playing in big games. They need him in East Lansing because they don't want to screw this up. Screw it up, you're 8-0. You got to win. Go to 9-0. Then you got to go beat Michigan in Bloomington. 10-0 going to Columbus. That's got to be their goal. And they know it's 2 steps. It's 2-pronged. And I don't think they can do it without him.
I don't think that they can either. And finally, Iowa quarterback Cade McNamara, not listed on the depth chart for this week. He left Saturday's win over Northwestern. Injury concerns from him. Whatever. Iowa sucks this year, Scotty. It doesn't matter. Iowa stinks. They're not in the mix. I don't want to hear about them. I'm tired of Iowa. Iowa football. Finished. I don't need to hear about it anymore. No, Iowa's a middle-of-the-road team now in the Big Ten as far as I'm concerned. Whatever. There you go. College football for this week. Enjoy FIU tonight against New Mexico State if the Yankee game is not going your way. We will come back. I know I've got like a minute here, but I don't want to start. I got to give you the proper amount of time with the Flower. Like, I just feel like I'd be rushing it. If I played the Flower clip now, you're only going to get like 20 seconds to talk about him. Let's come back and talk about one of the Penguin greats coming back. Hockey night at the PPG tonight. Penguins in the Wild. We know he's retiring after the year. Probably the last time you'll see Marc-Andre Fleury in the city of Pittsburgh, at least in uniform, playing in a game. And it should be a good reason for everyone to come out tonight and see the Flower, Scotty, in Pittsburgh. So we'll hear from him when we come back.
This guy was so unbelievable when he played for the Penguins. I will never forget, hopefully, as long as I live, the greatest game I ever saw in my life. He was in goal in Game 7 of the 2009 Stanley Cup Finals against the Detroit Red Wings at Joe Louis Arena. And with less than 5 seconds left in that game, this guy made the most unbelievable diving save across the crease you ever saw in your life and won them the Stanley Cup after losing to the Red Wings in 2008 to go to the Joe Louis Arena. They never lose a Game 7 ever. And to beat them in their building in a Game 7 on the road is unheard of. It was the greatest performance I ever saw by a goalie. And I've seen them all. Barrasso, I saw Murray. I've seen him win 5 Stanley Cups. I'll always think that one, the 2009 with Fleury, was my favorite Stanley Cup win ever.
when you talk about how these series came to a head and what has been happening in this postseason for the Yanks, offensively, it hasn't been Aaron Judge.
Baseball is such a big win here. All you ask for, East Coast Monster City, West Coast Monster City, the biggest of biggest Titan superstars on both sides here, two mammoth fan bases. The entire country can buy into this one.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like this that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball with the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players hit home run. I call it covering the board. You know, if I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Look, Aaron Rodgers, it does seem like he really enjoys, people like us, Vinny, talking about him.
I don't know what's going on here with Aaron Rodgers. I think that there's some frustration settling in, and the Jets were not supposed to be this bad of a defense, right? They've had a lot of injuries. Maybe that's the thing here. Robert Saleh's influence is there. I know they have their defensive coordinator running things, but now he's distracted.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
I seriously thought they'd rue the day they let him go, Mike, that they let Fleury leave Pittsburgh because they basically sold him out for Murray, and then Murray's career, I won't deny he was part of 2 cups. I won't deny he did the job. But then when he left, he got waived by Toronto. Like, he doesn't even matter anymore in the NHL at all. He doesn't even have a gig. And Fleury, the whole time, he went to Chicago, he went to Minnesota, he always could still play. And I thought the Penguins have had the worst goaltending I've ever seen in my life since the day they got rid of him. They have literally, these guys they've got, oh my God, they're so bad. Oh, they're so bad. They're so awful. They have no chance to win with these goalies. It doesn't matter who they start. All of these guys that they have are awful. All of them, including their starter, their backup, the young kid, Bloomquist. They all suck. They're all horrible. And you know it. Jari's horrible. He's like the River Kwai. My guy is like the Suez Canal. He literally is.
He stinks. It will be an emotional scene tonight with the Flower in between the pipes for the Minnesota Wild as they come to hockey night at the PPG in Pittsburgh. Here is Flower yesterday, Scotty. Very emotional.
I don't know. I don't want anything different than another game, right? I don't expect much else. I don't know. I feel like sometimes growing older, I get a little softer than I used to. With emotions, feels like I don't know if they're kids or something. But anyway, so I think just maybe deep breath. Look around, take a good look around, right? To keep good memories. Like I said, I was very fortunate to play here for so long, and a lot of good souvenirs from this place. So it'll be nice to do it one more time.
They screwed this up nice and juicy. They really did. He was such a great goalie, and they let him go. Like, how bad was their GMs and their decision makers in the front office? And to this day, they've had horrible decision makers in the front office. Their management core in Pittsburgh's been a disaster. And I don't think anyone likes Kyle Dubas either. I really don't. And Rutherford was an old geezer. And it just goes on and on and on. I can't even believe to be honest with you, and I'm going to say it, that Mario Lemieux let it happen. I can't even believe that he, as the owner, let it happen. That he's one of these guys, he lets them make their decisions. He's one of these owners that lets his GMs and his front office call the shots. And I think that at some level, that's a mistake. You can't always let them call every decision the right one, because the decisions they've made in goal have been franchise changing. Utterly, they went from being a 5-time Stanley Cup champ to a chump. They're a chump now. They suck. I mean, they can barely win a game. And then they want me to go to a game on the 16th and pay $300 for 2 seats. They charge through the nose in Pittsburgh for tickets to watch that crappy hockey team. And the only thing you're paying to see in that arena is to watch number 87 skate around and Malkin to loaf around and play half-assed. Malkin don't even try no more. He don't even try. He got all that money. He's like, this is unbelievable, these people. In Russia, they would have put him in prison. These people are just giving me all this money, and I don't even play anymore. I don't even try. He doesn't even try anymore.
He really doesn't. The Penguins are dogs at home tonight with Fleury in between the pipes. The Wild are minus $1.26. The Penguins are going to start Bloomquist tonight against him. Total is 6.5.
They should start Mike Bloomberg, the old mayor of New York City. He's like 100. He'd be better in goal. Honestly.
Should be fun. I'm on the Wild. Fleury wins his last game in Pittsburgh. Come on. Fleury's got to go in there. Hey, I was actually just digging around for the number. Fleury to get a shutout tonight. I'm going to have to find it here before we get out of here. That might have to be a leftover play for us before the end. All right, here's the rest of the card for you. Anaheim is at the horse track tonight against the Islanders. Anaheim sucks, but then again, the Islanders aren't much better. They are minus 235, though, tonight, so I guess anything's possible there.
That number is just, what is it, the Baconator dinner? I'm not laying that kind of juice with the New York Islanders. Forget about it.
Can't do it. Cannot do it whatsoever. The Flyers are in Boston tonight against the Bruins. Bruins minus $1.65 now. Flyers plus 136. 6.5 is the total there. I'll bring them all off for you, and you can tell me what you like since we got our time.
I like the Bruins there. They got to start winning. They cannot lose this game, of all things.
Seattle's in Montreal against the Canadiens tonight. Again, Canadiens dogs at home against not a great team. It's juicy at 146 for Montreal.
Yeah, I'll take Montreal tonight at the Bell Center. They got to win once every 2 weeks.
St. Louis is in Ottawa against the Senators. Senators minus $1.80 tonight. That's up from the 178. 6.5 the total against St. Louis.
At that number in Ottawa.
Blues tonight. The Rangers are in D.C. against the Caps. Rangers favorites on the road minus $1.50. 5.5 the total.
Yeah, I like the Rangers every night. I think they're one of the best teams in the NHL. I'm not betting against them.
And only one late night game on the left coast. That is at the Tank in San Jose, where the Kings are minus 275, Sharks plus 220 with a 5.5.
I'll lay a goal and a half there with the Kings. The Sharks are back to being pathetic again in short order.
We will come back and start leftovers with our 4 NBA games for tonight. And we will get over 15-1 for the Fleury shutout, by the way. Plus 1,500 for a Fleury shutout tonight. And
I don't think he's had a shutout in a few years. He gives up goals now.
You know what? It's a Happy Meal bet. Now, you're not a big unit bet. It's a Happy Meal bet. Something small
with $20
on the
down
flour
on it.
to get a shutout tonight. At the PPG. Let's go. We'll do the NBA when we come back.
You know, the Yankees are so awful. Maybe I'll just play some of those slot machines we've been playing Carver High tonight at home.
Yes, you could do
that.
What
I mean?
You can
I
get
can
involved
just
with
play
that
slots all night, and then I won't get as mad as I am today.
Howl at the Wolf.
When you talk about how these series came to a head and what has been happening in this postseason for the Yanks, offensively, it hasn't been Aaron Judge.
Baseball is such a big win here. All you ask for, East Coast Monster City, West Coast Monster City, the biggest of biggest Titan superstars on both sides here, two mammoth fan bases. The entire country can buy into this one.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. So here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball, but the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players hit home run. I call it covering the board. You know, if I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got, 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Look, Aaron Rodgers, it does seem like he really enjoys, people like us, Vinny, talking about him.
I don't know what's going on here with Aaron Rodgers. I think there's some frustration settling in, and the Jets were not supposed to be this bad of a defense, right? They've had a lot of injuries. Maybe that's the thing here. Robert Saleh's influence is there. I know they have their defensive coordinator running things, but now he's distracted.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Mike, I'd be remiss on leftovers if I didn't start with Banchero's 50-point performance last night. 50, 13, and 9. What a badass. And they barely beat the Pacers. The Pacers covered. It was 119-15. The Magic got it done, but Banchero's just turned into such a stud.
Yeah, that was a hell of a game. I was going to mention that to you along with the Knicks losing at home to the Cavs. The Nuggets needed overtime to beat Toronto. And then late night Suns did give the Lakers their first loss of the season, 109-105. As far as later on, first, Anthony Davis and Jason Tatum, where they were named the players of the week for last week, the first ones of the season. The NBA this afternoon fined the Sixers $100,000 for Embiid injury statements. Not the injury report stuff with Embiid, but the way they have talked. The Nick Nurse comments, I think I played him for you last week about how he really was being kind of cloak and dagger about what was wrong with Embiid. That got the Sixers a $100,000 fine. But as I always like to say to you, for an owner, that's like a $10 bill in my pocket when they got to give away $100,000. That's nothing to them. So
that's what
they
they
can
pay
continue
for
to
ice in the concourse level of the
Correct.
arena.
Correct. Although it does sound like one of their injured stars, Paul George, is expected to make his debut tomorrow night, but no Embiid yet. But you will get Paul George, it looks like there. Denver off the win in Toronto, play again tonight, a back-to-back in Brooklyn at Barclays against the Nets. Nuggets minus 5.5, 218.5 is the total.
I don't know how they deal with Joker, to be honest with you. You would think Denver would win this game. The one thing is, with the 5 on Brooklyn, is this Cam Thomas guy puts in 30, 40 points a night. Like, no one can stop him. The guy has become the pure scorer on the Nets. So the 5 might be live the way Denver's played. Denver had to bust their ass just to win in overtime last night by a bucket. They had lost their first 2 games. They finally win a game, and they can barely win that. So that 5 might be alive.
That does seem like a lot with the way the Nuggets have gone so far. Dallas is in Minnesota against the Timberwolves. First game of the TV doubleheader tonight. T-Wolves minus 5, 220.5 the total.
I like the Timberwolves at home at the Target, to be honest with you, with Ant and company. I like I think Randall and Gobert and company get it done at home against Luka and the Mavs. I know the Mavs are tough. I get it. I think that Clay's been good so far. I mean, he had 18 the other night. He had 22 the night before that. He's been hitting some shots. I think Kyrie, Luka, and Clay all have to come up huge tonight to win that game. I still like the T-Wolves.
Sacramento off a win against Portland last night. They're in Utah tonight, back-to-back. Jazz also back-to-back. They lost to Dallas. -6.5 for Sacramento, 235 the total.
Can we get a Utah cover tonight with that 6.5 piece? They're 0-3. They're playing at home. And then the Kings played a tight game last night and had to go down there to Salt Lake Shakers. Can we get a cover with the 6.5? I don't care about anything else.
It would be nice if we could actually get that. Yes, indeed. And finally, the Pelicans are 1.5-point favorites at Golden State tonight. 216.5 the total. Of course, no Curry for the Warriors tonight.
I mean, it smells like New Orleans, right? With Ingram and Zion and Alvarado, etc. But I think the young Warriors with Kerr, they're going to have that. They have a very deep bench, and they have talent. No Curry. I still think the Warriors can get it done tonight, getting 1.5 at home on TNT late night at the Chase. I'll take Golden State.
And then finally, Duke freshman Cooper Flagg, huge deal with Gatorade. Conor McGregor says he's retiring again. Like, honestly, enough already with this guy. I can't believe that we continue to do this.
Didn't he just announce a fight with Dan Hooker?
Enough. And John Jones agrees to anger management classes to resolve his legal issues. Man, another guy. Is he ever going to fight again, too? What about John Jones?
Does it even matter that they're going to, force him to go to anger management? A lot of good that's going to do against a guy that beats the crap out of people for a living. What, are you going to make him nice at the anger management meetings? We've all been down that road before with that stupid class. What a waste of time that is with people that have tempers. Honestly, I've never seen anyone. What do they come out and find Christ? And suddenly they're born again and friendly and hugs and kisses for everyone. My ass. GTD is next. Go to FerrallandEvents.com. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock on Coast to Coast.
Nashville, help me welcome to the stage the captain of Crushers GC and the 2024 U.S. Open champion, Bryson DeChambeau.
Gosh, I'm trying to hold it in right now. The support's been overwhelming.
Tickets for Nashville this week are nearly sold out. We are calling this the Bryson effect.
Won the Saudi Open on the Asian Tour in April, and he won the International Series event in Macau in March, beating David Puig in a playoff. Here's a man with 9 career wins, 3 of them on the DP World Tour. 33 years of age from Sacramento, and he is making the most of his chance.
Remember, John Catlin playing as a reserve for Charles Howell III, who's injured. If he were to go on to win this, he gets those points. That would move him right at the top 24 number. Move him at 20th currently. Yeah, another beautiful shot. These guys making this look so easy.
Having a day. The Englishman 6 under par. He shares the lead with Abraham Answer for the time being, at least. Now this is Abraham Answer to stay at 7 under and in all likelihood have the open night lead, and that is wonderfully done. Abe Answer with a 64.
This is what Live Golf's about, man. I had a vision of this 2-3 years ago, seeing what the potential could be, and this is just the start. I mean, with how much support we have out here, and it's just the start, that's a testament to what Live Golf is and what the Crushers are doing, what our team's doing, and what we're trying to do for Nashville and places all across the globe. So super excited for the future of Live.